And while a lot of people are thinking about this as time of excitement, renewal, a new decade, a new year, a lot of us, while we have some optimism, have some realities to deal with here. And that is the fake news industrial complex is only going to get worse in the coming decade and is going to get worse aided by technology in this decade. And so as we go through and we take a look at everything that has gone on over the last 10, 20 years, saying that things are going to get worse is quite a remarkable statement, because how much worse can it get? Now, the fake news is going to be the biggest problem that we encounter. And when we say fake news, we got to make sure that we are defining it correctly, because we're not saying fake news as in the Babylon Bee or the Onion, which are supposed to be satirical sites. It's the mainstream media, CNN, ABC, NBC. You know, they're there to try and tell you a story, but they're not telling you the story. They take something that actually happened and then develop a fictional narrative around it. Chuck Todd explains what the media does, although he doesn't mean to give the bag away.
I want to read you guys a letter to the editor that we found in the Lexington Herald-Leader. It was a fascinating attempt at trying to explain why some people support President Trump. Here's what he says. Why do good people support Trump? It's because people have been trained from childhood to believe in fairy tales. This set their minds up to accept things that make them feel good. The more fairy tales and lies he tells, the better they feel. Show me a person who believes in Noah's Ark, and I will show you a Trump voter. Look, this gets at something, Dean, that my executive producer likes to say is, hey, voters want to be lied to sometimes. They don't always love being told hard truths.
And that is the principle in which the media operates off of, that voters want to be lied to. And technology is only going to make it easier. And with the media having set up so many things, I mean, think about how the media went with the Steele dossier, unverified, completely full of fake information. But they ran with it without ever verifying it. Now let's take a look at what's going to be coming around in the next 10 to 20 years that the media is going to be using. Heck, it's around right now, and we know how the left is going to exploit it. As we take a look here, you know, Vice is reporting about a program that makes it easier to make deep fakes. Now, if you're not familiar with what a deep fake is, a deep fake is, you know, videos and audios in which a person is able to copy the voice of somebody else and make it seem like they said something that they didn't say. And the video deep fakes allows, with just a simple web camera looking at you, take your facial expressions and your mouth movements and speech patterns and map it on to somebody else. And with the media having gone through and started setting up ideas that Trump has used the N-word in a public setting, you know, you can see that someone coming up with a deep fake video or just a deep fake audio, the media will run with it without any verification, just like they did with the Steele dossier. In fact, we can see where deep fakes are going to get so grandiose or so, you know, evolved that you can take an event like CPAC and replace the speaker on stage, the entire body, with somebody who is horrible, so that when Sean Hannity is up there talking and getting rounds of applause, they could replace Sean Hannity up on stage with, say, some white supremacist and make it look like conservatives are clapping and applauding a white supremacist saying a horrible, horrible thing. And the media will run with it because, well, you know, they're fake news. And we will see this going on where the media has planted the idea that there's secret audios or secret videos, and then the deep fakes will be created, and then the media will report on those deep fakes without any verification whatsoever. But, you know, that seems to be the issue that we are going to come across here in 2020 as the Democrats become increasingly desperate. And when we talk about the Democrats becoming increasingly desperate, you know, we got to take a look at how bad things have gotten over the last 10 years, where they were running videos of Republicans throwing Granny off the cliff, videos of Republican supporters chasing down minorities in vehicles in order to fearmonger, where they created fake hate crimes in order to try and scare minorities into voting for the Democrats, where they created graffiti and swastikas and minority neighborhoods, and then tried to blame Republicans for it or Trump supporters for it. And the media ran with all of these fake stories in order to try and target the political opponents. Any Republican that is running up for office, and especially Donald Trump. And I would classify this as emotional terrorism. And that is where the Democrats are trying to instill fear in minority communities in order to keep them in line of voting for Democrats. But there is plenty of indication that these tactics are not working for the Democrats the way they want to, the way they had hoped that it would. And we see that as these tactics fail, the Democrats are going to get more and more over the top. Now, as we have seen in recent polling, the Epoch Times is showing that a third of blacks support Trump may herald huge political upheavals up ahead. And so in a recent polling of Rasmussen back on November 22nd, reported that 34% of blacks in a survey now support President Trump. Think about that. Right now, the Democrats have had to rely so much on the black vote and Hispanic vote, and they appear to be losing those votes to President Trump because the results outweigh the fake narratives that the Democrats have created. And this is where the Democrats are going to start getting more and more into using deep fakes of video and audio, along with the creation of fake hoax crimes, fake hate crimes, where people like Jesse Smollett, hire people to beat him up, wearing MAGA hats, or, spray painting swastika signs and trying to blame it on white supremacists to try and fearmonger the minorities into staying with the Democrat Party by saying, hey, if you leave us, you're going to end up in some type of internment camp. And that is how the left operates. And the fake news, which will do no verification whatsoever, are going to go through and promote these type of deep fakes and report on them as if they are real. Now, they're going to do this in a combination with other dirty tactics to try and make it seem like white supremacy is worse than it is. And when I say that, I mean white supremacists can't even fill up a Walmart. They're so low in numbers. But they want to try and convince people that white supremacy is on the rise. And this is where you get the media taking obviously trolling situations where someone went through and tried to say, the OK sign means white power. It's a white supremacy sign. And now the media is going through and acting as if they believe that is real so that they can show all the Republicans who have just said OK and claim that they are secretly white supremacists. Therefore, if you vote for them, it's going to be horrible for you minorities. And so they're taking the idea of white supremacy, and what constitutes white supremacy to far extremes in order to, again, invoke emotional terrorism on minorities. And so, as you can see here, the Daily Wire is reporting that there is a story now that being nice is a tool of white supremacy. And as we go through here in this story, it's based off of this tweet that is going on right here, whereby, Race to Diner, or Dinner, however you want to say that, is reporting that white women's obsession with being nice is one of the most dangerous tools of white supremacy. Ooh, think about that. Now, what they are trying to do is convince you that if white people are nice to minorities, it is simply a tool of white supremacy. And I guess the theory is that if someone's nice to you, that you feel obliged to be nice back, or, it's hard for you to be angry. And so by being nice and making you happy, that somehow it makes you complacent and subjugated. And think about what ridiculous nonsense that is. And yet the left eats it up. They keep on trying to find new ways to say that simply being nice to people is now a form of white supremacy, and so that they can go off and say, hey, you better vote for a Democrat or things are going to be horrible for you. And as they go through and they do this, the Democrats are also implementing policies that are leading towards, negative consequences for the minority communities, and then trying to go off and blame Republicans for the results of Democrat policies. And as the Democrats go out there and they purposely go off to make things hard for minorities, they then come out and try and say that they have the solution. And the solution, of course, is more power for the Democrat Party and an erosion of your constitutional rights. Let's take an example here. We got Baltimore. It has nonstop violence as it neared record high homicide rates. And the Baltimore could wrap up 2019 with its highest per capita homicide rate on record, as killings of adults and minors alike for drugs, retribution, money, no clear reasons continue to add up for the city. Now, as we go through here and we take a look at Democrat policies, now this was in Baltimore, but now let's take a look at New York, whereby they are no longer forcing criminals to have to force bail. Bail is, no longer consideration. They're just released, pending trial. If they're a minority, they're given special treatments in order to avoid prosecution, because of social justice. Well, what happens? Well, that creates, more crimes. As people get away with crimes without punishment, they're going to create more and more crimes, so long as they think that they can reap all the benefits and suffer none of the consequences. Now, the Democrats are going through and they're looking at this and they're trying to say in Virginia that we should, end the Second Amendment and that we should go around and start confiscating people's guns. But let's take a look here at that. As Virginia is going around and promoting the idea that they're going to go around and create a task force now. Yes, that's right, a task force to go around and take people's guns away in order to comply with the new illegal and completely unconstitutional laws that the Democrats are trying to push in the state of Virginia. And think about this for a moment. How many different sections of the Constitution that this violates? Not just the Second Amendment, but also the Fourth Amendment. The unreasonable search and seizure of one's property. But they don't care. But as we go through here and we take a look at all of this, we start to realize that the Democrats have promoted the ability for gun violence to occur. And how did they do that? Well, they failed to secure the southern border, because they saw all the illegal immigrants coming across the border and they thought, hey, this was great. This equals political power, because as they flow into states such as California, Chicago, or Illinois and New York, they see them being counted in the census and therefore additional House seats being created in the House of Representatives for deep blue states, as they maintain the 700,000 people per one representative. And that by getting the additional seats in the House of Representatives gives them greater influence over the presidential election, as the Constitution states that more House seats equals more electoral votes. And the population of illegal immigrants, having been included in the census for the House of Representatives, has given deep blue states, California, Illinois, and New York, enough electoral votes to wipe out the voices of 5 other additional states. That is amazing. But what has happened here is that not only drugs, but guns have flown across the border, and that's what ends up in the hands of criminals. If you take a look at the people doing the mass killings, you'd realize that most of them cannot get their hands on guns legally. They are barred. It is illegal for them to own a firearm. So that what is happening is guns are flowing across the southern border, and then it is on the black market, and criminals are getting their hands on it and shooting people up. Now, there is a percentage of the guns that are being stolen from other people's houses, but considering that criminals don't know who does and doesn't have guns, the black market seems to be the main place in which criminals are getting their guns. And if the Second Amendment were to be repealed, as the Democrats are hoping, that means that guns will continue to flow across the southern borders, and the only thing that's changed is now the population is defenseless against the criminals. But that is exactly what the Democrats want, because the more terrorized you are, the more willing you are to give up your rights. And the more that these deepfake videos and audios get better, not only being able to map facial expressions from one person onto another, match the voices, change the scenery in the background, or even replace who's in the video talking to a particular audience, they're going to be able to use that in order to overthrow democracy. Why? Because democracy doesn't give them what they want. They don't want to have to compete for your votes. They want to be able to dictate to you what you should and shouldn't think. Now, as we go through and we wrap up this particular video, I want to show you one more thing. Ocasio-Cortez ramps up attacks on America, not an advanced society. And this is another thing that the Democrats tend to do. They try to claim that everything about the United States is evil. And so she wants to go off and say that what is the point of accumulating all the resources if you don't create an advanced society? And so we need to fight to start this work, an establishment of an advanced society, Ocasio-Cortez said, because as much as we like to say that the United States is the richest country in the history, or rather in modern history, for who? The richest country. Who cares about how much gold is being amassed if we can't realize advanced societies with those resources? Apparently, she hasn't studied history whatsoever. So let's give her a little bit of an education. Before the United States came along, let's say the previous 5,000 years, society hadn't advanced much of anything. There wasn't much of an advancement between the time of Moses living in the Pharaoh's comfort in Egypt and, say, the 1600s. While there was some minor, advancements, such as shipbuilding, to be able to travel, I guess, a little bit better, or, bigger ships. There really wasn't much of an advancement on anything. People continued, to ride horses. Swords were the main weapons, swords and bow and arrows. And there wasn't any advanced society whatsoever. And then the United States came along, and mankind, and society advanced more in under 300 years, under 250 years, than it did for the previous 5,000 years. And it was the United States that developed most of the technology and capabilities that the world now enjoys, as we had exported those technologies around the world, advancing other societies that had been around for thousands of years and had not advanced whatsoever. So yes, it is a good idea that we use the resources that we are amassing to advance society. And that's exactly what we have done. Under capitalism, the previous 5,000 years of kings, socialists, dictators, there wasn't hardly any advancement whatsoever. It was only when capitalism came around in the United States that an advanced society has created. But Ocasio-Cortez, as far as she's concerned, the world started when she started becoming an adult, I guess. Which I guess technically we're still waiting for her to become an adult. So she hasn't done any study of history, and what she wants to do in the creation of an advanced society is to reverse society, to take all the things that led to the advancements of society and get rid of them and go back to the system that left the world stagnated for 5,000 years. And these are the type of people that want to run the country. These are the type of people that will promote deep fakes, and emotional terrorism in order to get people to vote for them, because nothing they say has any bearing in reality. They're just telling you, as Chuck Todd mentioned in our clip earlier, that they are wanting to lie to you, to tell you what they think you want to hear so you feel good about the idea of surrendering your rights, surrendering your freedom to go back to dictatorships and tyrannical rules and societal stagnation. Hey, YouTube viewers, thank you so much for your time and attention in watching this video. If you want to get more, click on the video playing off to the side here. Also, don't forget to hit subscribe and the notification bell so that you'll be notified when new videos and content drops. Thank you, and I